All right, you guys, we are back with Behind the Bikini. Welcome back. We are on episode 64. We checked it just before going live here for you. So we are on 64.
You remembered.
We remembered. So before we get started, like, comment, subscribe, hit all the buttons, comment, share, all of the fun things. And today we thought we would do kind of a fun topic along with what we typically talk about, and talk about basically if you could compete in any other division than what you do, what would it be? And if you could see one of your competitors, like one of your favorite competitors, compete in a different division, what would that be? And this was brought up because CBum is competing this weekend in Prague, and he is moving up to the Open Men's division. So for those of you that don't follow the men's divisions at all, CBum has won the Mr. Classic Olympia forever. He just retired. He just retired this year, and now he decided to do one more show, coming back and doing an open bodybuilding show, because he actually won his pro card in open bodybuilding. So he started as an open bodybuilder. That was prior to Classic Physique even existing. And he actually did a whole speech at Pittsburgh Pro a couple of years ago. And he talked about how, he was actually really thankful that they came up with Classic Physique. He said, because when I won my pro card, he's like, I really thought my career was over, because he's like, he's 6'1". And he's like, I don't want to put the size on. I would need to, and I'd be competitive in the open and all of that. So, so he was like thankful that that particular division actually existed. Apparently your dogs are thankful too.
I am dog sitting Aaron Cam's dog Scuttle. He's very bossy and very vocal. So if you hear him in the background, that's Mr. Scuttle.
Oh, that's too funny. Him and Dolly would get along great, because Dolly is very vocal and bossy as well.
Him and Penny, they just keep each other entertained all day.
Okay, so. I love it. Well, we say that too with Dolly. I think Dolly keeps Elvis young. You know what I mean? She picks on him all the time. Yeah,
absolutely.
I think it's a real thing. So
it is. Sure.
But anyways, so we thought that would be a fun topic to go into today. Just kind of talk about what we would do if we could be in a different division. So, but before we get into all that, you are reversing. I am in prep. So how's everything going over there for you now that you're kind of back settled into the States here again?
Everything's really, really good. I posted my my update yesterday on my social media. Weight's back up, so I'm back around like 122-ish, so right around stage weight again. And I checked in on Tuesday, and Jamie was really happy about that. I'm having a ghost cycle, I think. I'm having some really intense cramps again. So when going into the Olympia, when I was pushing really hard, those ghost symptoms kind of subsided. So now they're, starting to come back again. But everything's really good. We the only really major change this past week from not this check-in, but my last check-in, was that we did cut my prescribed thyroid medication in half. We just want to kind of see if I can start like kind of naturally producing at a regular rate again with only a little bit of medication. So obviously the thyroid affects body weight and body fat. So we don't want to I asked for not too many changes. I kind of want to wait and see how the thyroid medication starts affecting me. Ever since we dropped the thyroid medication in half, that's when my weight started creeping up. So I know it is playing an effect. So yeah, we're just going to kind of wait and see how that goes. I'm honestly feeling really good energy wise. I was expecting and was told to expect a major crash. And then, as it kind of comes up again, but I've kind of been smooth sailing. And then we'll get labs done the first week of December, which is about 8 to 10 weeks post show. And then we'll kind of go from there. So that's really the only update. We're back up to stage weight. I'm really happy. We look good. Jamie's happy. I thought she was going to be a little concerned. She was like, I'm really happy your weight's back up. I'm like, all right, perfect. So we're just kind of cruising right now. Nothing, no big changes this week.
Now, did they give you any kind of time frame as far as when you might see your thyroid levels start to even back out and things like that? What do they think?
Usually takes about 2 to 6 weeks. It really depends on like how much you are on and the type. I am on T3 and T4. A lot of people usually do the NP thyroid, and that is what I did in the beginning years ago, and it did not help at all. So I think the synthetic T3, T4 is a little bit stronger. So I hope it's only a few weeks, but everyone is super, super different. So yeah. I have seen with myself that I'm very not that sensitive. What am I trying to say? To medications. I have a very high tolerance with everything, anything that I do. So that's why I'm hoping it won't be too much of like a big rebound.
Yep.
But we'll have to just adjust body weight or focus on my body weight and see. Drew's out of town. I do not see him now until Thanksgiving. He just left today for Atlantic Coast, which is in Fort Lauderdale.
Yeah.
And then he's just going to stay with his parents after that and get some good time in with them because they live in Miami. And then I'm just going to meet him in Miami for Thanksgiving. So I'm not going out to eat. I could just stick to my plan. Nothing's happening. So that kind of really allows me to focus and like control those variables.
Okay. So this, and I know this is, again, everything that we're saying here, we're not doctors, so don't take this as Bible or anything like that. This is not medical advice by any stretch of the imagination, but it's just kind of to get a general overview kind of deal. So when you decided to go on the thyroid medication, was it because you were symptomatic, or was it because your labs were showing that you should? What was the catalyst behind it?
Both.
Okay.
So there was a point where I was not in prep. Food was high, and I would just wake up from, an 8 to 9 hour sleep. So, no other lifestyle factors could be affecting my fatigue. Basically, at this point, I was getting good sleep. Caffeine was, nothing crazy. So I just felt off. I felt like I could go right back to sleep. So fatigue was super high at that point. And then we went and got labs done, and my thyroid was basically in the dirt. So that's where we started, kind of introducing the NP thyroid. I was on that for about 6 months, and I still kind of felt the same. And then that's when we made that transition. And I've been on it for about 1.5 years now. Okay. Drew and we talked about in our last podcast how we had that discussion in between the Legion show about my training. And he has been concerned from the day one of this prep that I was losing tissue, and it's not like me to lose tissue in a prep. So I did get leaner faster this year. So we're wondering if the higher thyroid medication had something to do with that. So it's great that I was able to get so lean, but that means that I was burning through tissue. So that's why we're going to try to kind of pull off now. We don't know when the Olympia is going to be like next year. There's some rumors floating around now that it's going to be at a certain time, but nothing's confirmed yet. So we're going to kind of take those rumors and, kind of stick to that timeline. If that's the case, we have plenty of time, so we'll see kind of what happens.
Yeah. I kind of wondered about that because, I hear this a lot, and like I'll use myself as an example too. I don't have any symptoms of, low thyroid or anything like that. But anytime I do my labs, my T3 is always low, always. And so, in reviewing the labs, they're always like, well, this just may be your normal. Like if you're not having any symptoms, just because you run low doesn't mean you need medication, Yeah. So there's things to be thinking about with that sort of situation too. So it's always a good idea to have good people that can review your labs as well, because, some people are not ethical and they'll just try to put you on everything just to sell you stuff. You know what I mean?
So and in that case too, like not being symptomatic, like there are a lot of great natural products on the market now for thyroid boost. New Ethics makes it a fantastic product. I've literally seen on lab work from 1 week to a week 2 them, and the only change them going on that New Ethics product, their thyroid significantly start coming back up. So there's a lot of great options now other than just going to a medication, which I did try those. I know at the beginning, like we tried reducing caffeine and going on a thyroid supplement and all those things, and sometimes just it's not helping, and I was symptomatic. So you have to kind of take that into consideration. But I totally agree with you. If labs are just coming back low but you feel fine, that might just be your normal. There's not really a reason just to add something, especially a medication.
That's right. And especially that's a good reason why you need to have labs done regularly, because then you can see if this is your baseline or if something changes. Where you want to be worried about things is when you see changes more than anything else. If you're just if that's just how you normally are, that's just how you normally are, So if you're going up or you're going down or whatever, then that's places to be paying attention. Like, the first time I ever ran labs too, my testosterone was low, but my cortisol was really high. So it was right after I come out of prep. And so they were like, you could go on testosterone. It's like, but, you could also try to just manage your cortisol and see if that helps, and that brings your levels up. So that's what I did. Just like you said, went through the natural path first and worked on my cortisol levels, and that worked. So I didn't have to go on any kind of medication in order to get my testosterone to go back up. So, those are the things to be paying attention to, and why getting labs is so important. So you can create a baseline and where you're supposed to be.
That's a really good point too, is not only just getting labs, but being mindful of how you're presenting at the time of your
Yeah.
labs. So, the first thing is, you just mentioned I went in for my labs, pretty close to post show. So you don't want to go too close to post show because when you are post show, let's say that you go get lab work done, the Monday, Tuesday after your show. Probably most things in there are going to be flagged. Your
That's
body
right.
really, really stressed.
Yep.
So usually what I tell my athletes is wait about 8 to 10 weeks. Let's put some body fat on you. Let's let the body start recouping. And then we go in and test and see kind of what's flagged, if anything. But also too, like if you just went to Vegas last weekend and you were drinking and partying all weekend and you have labs on Tuesday or Wednesday morning, that's also going to affect your
That's
lab.
right.
If you had a super stressful weekend, that's going to affect your lab. So like being very mindful of when you start making that appointment for lab work, you almost have to like prep for the lab work.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I get lab work back all the time and everything's like flagged. I'm like, what happened? Oh, I did this. I did that. That's obviously going to affect your training, affects your labs.
It does. That's something I didn't know until this year. I didn't realize you're not supposed to train the day before you go get your labs done. I didn't know that. So
because
I'm like,
it literally will break your muscle. Like when we're training, we're breaking our muscle down. And so liver enzymes go through the roof because it's trying to process what happens internally. So, if I get that back and your liver enzymes are through the roof, the first thing I ask is, did you train the day before? Most of the time, oops, yeah, I did. Sorry, whatever. But now we don't have an accurate reading.
There was one that I went in for and I think it was my glucose was high, but I had mango the night before. Like that was what I had before I went to bed. I'm like, well, that's why it was high in the morning. You had sugar in your system. Well, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So like not only being fasted for, 8 to 10 hours when the time you eat, but like what was that last meal of the night? Like you really want to be conservative in that last meal so you present as like natural as possible by the time you show up for the lab work.
And they talk about the coffee thing too, like something I was always told that you can have black coffee before you go in for your blood work. And then last year Heather was saying, no, don't do black coffee. And I was like, oh, really? I was always told, even because Dan gets his blood work drawn all the time. So my husband has to get a prescription Tramadol in order to be able to sleep. So whenever he has to re-up that prescription, he has to go get his blood work done again. So he literally gets blood work done all the time, all the time. So he was like, no, you can have coffee before your labs. I said, no. I said, I was told not to do it. I said, because it can skew your labs, regardless of if it's black or not. So it's funny. He went in for labs yesterday, actually, and he was all pissy because he couldn't have coffee in the morning.
Yeah. It's funny. Like when you check in at LabCorp, it will say, like, if you're on a fasted time, it'll be like, are you fasted with water and black coffee only? So to LabCorp, yeah, you can have black coffee, but like, if you're looking at something specific hormonally, the clinic is going to tell you that they want you to drink water only. So, caffeine starts to kind of spark your wake up hormones. So what it's, again, not your most natural state. So it's difficult. And there's a lot of rules and every clinic is slightly different. But if you're concerned and, your coach or your lab, doesn't kind of, tell you how to do this, just send one of us a message and we can give you there's 4 or 5 just generalized rules, if you will, before your lab work to make them as natural as possible.
Yeah. And when I'm saying Heather, I mean from Premier Alternative. We talk about them all the time. So they're one of our sponsors for CCTS. They'll be back again this year. Awesome. But I had to laugh too yesterday because, I had that conversation with Dan, about not doing coffee, and he's always done coffee, like I said. And I had to laugh yesterday when he didn't do coffee. I was like, oh, so you're actually listening to me. I was like, oh, go figure. Yeah. He's going to listen to what I have to say. Imagine that.
I won't say anything, but I'm going to film it that you're listening.
I know, right? Well, that's the funny part. It's because he's very we've talked about this before. It's he's got a very, this is his idea of things. I'm like, yeah, I get that. I say, but you got to be, he's open, but he just gets very defensive at first, and then he stops, and then he'll go Google it or something.
I get it.
Oh yeah.
I used to be like that with Drew all the time. Sometimes I still am. I got to catch myself. He'll tell me something, and I'm like, and I'm like, okay, yep, just listen for a second, just listen. I used to be really bad at that, so I understand that.
Yeah. Yep. So I was proud. I was like, oh, he's not doing coffee. So I was not happy because he was in a bad mood, but but he listened to me at the end of the day, and that's what's important. So
That's it. And thankfully, especially when you're there all the time, it literally takes like 10 minutes. It just sucks when you're driving there and you're like, I really need a cup of coffee.
What I did with mine is I took my coffee with me and had it in the car. So that when I
Smart.
came out, I was ready to go.
You're already ready to go. Wasted no time.
No time, none whatsoever.
Time at all.
So, but yeah, I've got a bunch of girls that just competed this past weekend, and one of them specifically is like, I want to go get my labs done. I was like, hold on, just let's get out of this. What I tend to tell them is like, let's get you through your reverse portion to the point where you feel like you're somewhat normal again. Yeah. You're not, those hunger hormones aren't going all over the place, and like you said, can take anywhere from a month, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, whatever. Yeah. So that we're in a good spot to take those. So yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, I had an athlete I just had this conversation with too. She actually did go in for labs, and it's only been about 3.5, 4 weeks post show. And I was like, you could get them done. Just I can't use them. I don't want to make an action on them because it's still too close. And she's just someone that really loves data. So great. Yep. So if you can afford it, I love data too. So now we have these labs. And then when she goes back in another 4 weeks, I have a really good kind of stepping point of this is where they were 4 weeks ago when she was still stressed and kind of compromised from prep to this is now her most healthiest state this close to show. So it's not a bad thing to get them done. But if you have to be able to afford multiple labs that your coach wants, if you're wanting extra data.
Yep. So yeah, fun times. So those will be coming up for me in probably, I don't know, January, February timeframe for me. So
yeah, well, if your last feed is, the first week of December, you'll definitely be going in January.
Yeah. Yep. So yeah, it's funny. I just got my check-in back from Jamie this morning. I sent everything this morning. So it's my check-in day. Yep. And, my weight has stayed like this. She increased my calories last week and decreased my cardio last week. My weight still stays like this. So it's a weird feeling because I'm eating almost as much right now as I typically do in off season. Right. And I was doing 20 minutes of cardio. She just dropped it down to 10 minutes now and making my steps 9.5K for my steps. It was 8.
I know why.
Why?
Training intensity. I don't think you've ever trained like this before. Because you can tell in your glutes, you can tell in your metabolism. I think that's a really big reason.
100%. 100%. It's 100% related to that. Absolutely. And it's just like I've put extra focus. It's we've talked about this before. It's like when you get on stage, you start seeing those deficiencies and you see where you can make improvements. So ever since Georgia, I've put extra focus onto certain things, and just simple things. Like I said before, I was overposing in my back pose. Now I'm at the point where it's actually finally releasing everything. I'm going in for massage work and dry needling and chiropractic adjustments every single week at this point. And it's made a huge difference in just my overall, how I feel, but how I look overall too. Like, it's just crazy how much fuller my glutes look. When I took my pictures this morning, I was like, holy shit, like, where did they come from? I was like, damn. And a lot of it's just because I was just so knotted up and tied up in the back. And now I'm not, and it's just simple things too. Like even when I foam roll, like I have 2 spots on my glutes that when I sit on the foam roll, it's almost like the foam roller gets stuck there and it like jolts when I go over it. And it's just a knot of tissue in there. And since we've been going in and doing the dry needling has been breaking that up. So now when I go and sit on the foam roller, it's like it barely catches when I go over it. I'm like, oh, it's all releasing. So that's all good things, With that, there was a side effect from that too. So my left glute has been really tight. And we've been loosening that up. And what's been happening is I can now feel my adductor, and I couldn't feel it before. We talked about this last week. So it used to be a little numb. Now I can feel it. So I did hair and makeup at the Virginia show this past weekend, and I was on my feet from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And so the following day, my knee, like my ligament, like my calf, my adductor all the way up, like there was like shooting pain almost a couple of times. Like Jennifer came over for an in-person session and check-in, and I sat down on the chair and I felt the shooting pain go up from my knee into like up into my groin. And I was like, whoa, what is that? That's not good. And then later that night, Dan was rubbing on my calves. He does that every night kind of thing. And it was like pain. Like he just barely touched me and it was like shooting pain in my calf. I was like, oh, that's not good. No. So I went into to Belmont Chiropractic where I go now. to do my adjustment on Tuesday. And he's like, that makes complete sense. He's like, that's a nerve ending area. He's like, that's a pressure point for your adductors and for your glute. He's like, because, your glute's tight, but you have tissue that crosses over and goes into your adductor and goes down into your calf. He's like, so that makes complete sense. You were standing on your feet all day long and putting extra pressure on that area that used to be numb just a couple of weeks ago. He goes, now it's being activated. You're putting stress on it. He's like, you didn't injure yourself. You didn't hurt yourself. Like, you just stressed it out, basically.
Yeah.
So he went in and just did a couple adjustments. I haven't had any pain since, so that's a good thing. So, but he was like, that's actually a good thing. It's showing that you're releasing. He's like, she's like, you just strained it. It's like going to the gym and working a muscle you haven't ever worked. That's what.
And you're using it now too, which is good. Like, it's almost like you're sore painful.
Correct.
But at that point, then, I mean, you standing on your feet for this amount of time is nothing new and something you're going to keep doing. So, like, what's something you can do on a show weekend to make sure that you're not in pain? And
conditioning. That's all I can do. Like, and it makes more sense now too, because I was saying when I used my left hand front pose in Daytona, it got to the point where I couldn't even hold it anymore because I was shaking and like that area was so weak. And I understand why now, like, I'm like, oh, that makes complete sense at this point, So I was like, it's little things like that you don't realize until you start feeling it. And I just didn't even know. I didn't even know until it started opening up. Yeah. So, it's a good thing. It's a good thing. It's just like now it's just, I'm very aware of it. Yeah. So, even when I'm in my back pose now, like I'm able to release, like I can feel when I'm tightening that glute.
Yeah.
I couldn't feel it like that before. I just saw like the divot and I'm like, where's that coming from? And it's because I'm squeezing. What I'm doing is I'm trying to stabilize myself.
Got it.
So in stabilizing myself, it's flexion, holding it. Yep. So I'm like, okay, I got it. So now when I just stand there and I just tilt, that's all I'm doing is tilting in my back pose. That's it. Nothing else. I'm like, oh, there it is. I'm like, okay.
Well, it's like for you and like years ago for me, like when we didn't have as much tissue, you do have to like arch and push and activate so much to try to create a shape. But once you have that density and once you have that shape, you only have to tilt. Like it's a really hard concept, especially with females who are new because they think flex and it's not like that in bikini. It's literally making it look effortless. There are some things that are activated, but most of the time it's just arching things and positioning them in a certain way. Yep. Squeezing and pushing back. We've talked about this on our posing one before, can actually make you appear smaller. Yep. So now that you have the tissue, you're just kind of getting used to this new body and less is more.
Exactly.
Now that you have put on that tissue.
It's weird.
So weird.
I'm like,
you're like, am I even doing anything?
Yeah.
It's completely different. And that's
100%.
the thing too, is you get in your head because it feels different. Your posing is so much of a mind to muscle activation too. So when you're changing so much as you have to right now with your posing, I'm sure that's also a mental fuck of like, is it right? Is it not? And you're just have that battle with yourself.
Absolutely. It's like, even because it starts even from my transition pose, my glute salute transition pose, because that's where I initially clench it because I'm trying to stabilize myself in that position. And I realize now that I'm clenching it and it stays like that when I get into my back pose. So I'm like, okay, I got to release while I'm right here so that it's released when I get into my back pose. It's all right here. It's very all difficult. Right here. Yeah. I was like, oh my God. It's so
and then
different.
You add in, with Drew just said this on his podcast with Fit Body Fusion, with all the assessments we've done, he's come up with like 4 or 5 like major pinpoints for bikini competitors and where they struggle. And one of them is being able to open their back when they arch their glutes in the back pose. It's very hard for a bikini athlete to do both. Usually as soon as they begin to arch, they begin to roll their shoulder blades back to try to create that tension where it's almost like the glutes have to pull back and the shoulders and the back have to pull forward. And it's like this push pull, and it's extremely difficult for me, like totally extremely difficult for me. And it started with me because he started to see that years ago, and he would yell at me, why can't you open up your back in your back pose, but you could do it when you're standing? And then he started to see it with more assessments. It is just something that's extremely hard to do, which is why you just have to keep creating that tissue up top. So then hopefully you just arch. And then if you do pull back a little bit, you have some tissue there to support that.
Yep. And the heart, I have kind of the opposite problem because of coming from figure. So I have no issue.
Yeah.
I have no issue with opening up my back. It's just there, like Even this morning when I took my videos, my first video that I took for Jamie doing the walk to the back, I was like, I hit my back way too open. Like I was like, oh, nope, that's figure. I was like, let me redo that. I was like, I had my hands, so my hands were out enough that I could see my hands on the outside of my legs. So I was like, no, I gotta pull that down. That's two figure. Yeah, that's two figure. So, everybody's got their thing, but that is one thing that I don't have a problem with as far as opening my back, but that's because I came from figure and I did figure for years, and that's just part of it,
Yeah.
So, everybody's got their thing.
So going into our topic then, is that what you would go back to?
Honestly, so yeah, this is our topic for today. So if I had a choice, to be perfectly honest, I would do fitness.
Cool.
If I could do any division other than what I do now, because you got to figure. No.
Okay.
But that's my point. If I could just choose which division I could do, it would be fitness.
Okay. Just make. I don't know. I'm just like, all right, well, go ahead.
No, I can't do any of that. I can't do any of that stuff.
Me neither.
But if I could,
right.
So and genetics wise, also like fitness girls are like 5 foot tall. They're teeny tiny little gymnast girls. I am not even close to being a fitness girl. But the reason why I say that is because A, I can do the figure poses because they do the physique round that way, and B, the routine. So like I love the routines. I think they're awesome. I think that's the best part. If you never watched like fitness routines, they're freaking amazing. Like it's so crazy what these girls are able to do. Like
especially ridiculous. At the Olympia level. But
yeah.
So fun.
Yeah. So if I could do anything, again, genetics aside, abilities aside, all of that aside, I would do fitness 100%. What about for you?
I think I would do figure, and I talk about that all the time. Like when I'm done with bikini, I'm gonna fuck around and find out what training, and then I come back out and figure. I can't open up my back, so like we said this for years. Like I want to do figure, and I can't even do a lat spread. So Drew's like, I think we got to find another division when you're done.
Well, see, that's like me with fitness. I can't do those routines, but whatever. Right. I would try.
This is a if you could situation. No, I don't want to tumble. That's too much work for me. I might want to do wellness, but I always say like I don't think I could carry those legs all of the time. So if it was like where I could just like put the legs on, go on stage, and then put the legs off. But I respect to wellness athletes because it's not something I could imagine myself walking around with 24/7. So I definitely think it would be figure.
It's crazy when you start thinking about the amount of weight some of these girls have to carry in the off season. Yeah. Like some of these wellness girls, when they are in off season, when they're in season, if they're like 5'5", right? When they're in season on stage, they weigh more than I do when I'm off season. It's crazy.
140, 150.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Yeah, Lisa M or W, the one that won a bunch of wellness pro shows last year, red suit. Yeah. She won the Legion's wellness show.
Oh, I know who you're talking about. Yeah.
Jamie asked her, she was like, do you mind me asking what your stage weight was? She's like 5'1". She was 136 pounds that morning.
Jesus.
5'1". She's tiny. She's little.
I'm 5'9", and I go on stage I wake up in the morning at like 139. Yeah. That's like where I wake up.
I mean, they're dense. Those legs, like
crazy.
Yeah, I love it. Like I said, I love looking at it. I appreciate it. Like I love seeing that, but I just can't. I couldn't do it for myself.
Yeah, I just and to even just think about the amount of food. Like I think about them for myself. Like I get it. My weight is distributed around my body differently than somebody that's 5'1". I get that. But like I'm struggling. So I won't say I'm struggling. I'm struggling with the food amount, I would say. I'm hungry right now. Like all the time I'm hungry. But it's like I feel almost like heavy at the end of the day because I've eaten so much. You know what I mean? Yeah. So when I think about the amount of food I would have to consume in order to put that kind of size on, it's just like, whew.
Glowing.
Yeah, I couldn't do it. Like even like that's one of the reasons why I made the decision to go to bikini from figure. Because I won my pro card in figure. I didn't want to have to put all that size on. Yeah, I didn't want to have to be that big. I knew what I would have to do in order to maintain that kind of size, and I can't do it. B, I don't want to.
Yeah.
So.
Well, it's funny that you said that because I've been watching a lot of YouTubes with CBum lately. Yeah. I'm really intrigued by the mindset of, what he's doing right now. And he was very open and vulnerable last year that, that prep was more mentally taxing and emotional for him. And this year, I want to kind of see how he's blending this decision with like the emotional state. And so one question that was asked to him is, you know, when you are retired, like, what are you looking forward to, like, never doing again, ever doing again? In one interview, he said dieting. He's like, I am sick of dieting. Like, I just want to go back to, you know, eating healthy intuitively, but like never having to be on a diet again. And in the other interview, he said more of like that emotional tax and the pressure. And like he said, pressure is a privilege, but I've had a lot of it and I just kind of want to live now. So it's interesting, you know, to kind of hear his perspective. And these guys have to eat a ton of food, you know, and you know, in both seasons, a ton of food. And then for him, especially with classic physique, he's got to get peeled. So relative to him, his food has to get very low to get peeled. And he's just done with both of it.
Yeah, agreed. And like, I've been watching the same thing. I've been watching a bunch of podcasts with him on it and stuff like that too. Cause it's very interesting to me now that he's decided to do this. Right. And his biggest thing was, he's like, he was on Bro Chat just the other day. So I was listening to that one yesterday. I didn't listen to the whole thing yet, but I did listen to part of it. And they were asking him, he was like, are you going to come in with your typical condition that you do in classic, or are you planning on coming in fuller? And he's like, I'm just going to come in at my fullest. He's like, yeah. He's like, I haven't been able to do that because I've had to meet weight, you know, I've had to hit the weight cap. He's like, now I don't have to do that. So I just want to just be busting full and get as big as I can, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting and these are some of the things that the podcast were asking too, like, at what point did he know, after like what Olympia did he show up thinking like, I'm probably going to win this year? And he's very humble. And he said, I never thought that, like, but truly this show, he's going in knowing he's not winning. Right. So what a different kind of like mindset and concept. Yeah, he might.
It's possible.
Pull it out. It's very possible.
It's possible.
Very possible. You know, but they keep putting, you know, the shots per shot with like him and Martin, and you know, Shawn I think is doing it too. So it's gonna be interesting. I just bought the live stream. I'm definitely watching it. I think that the live stream is going to be even more popular than the Olympia. Truly, agreed. Like, this is a once in a lifetime, and I think it's just going to be a lot. I think the guys are going to have a lot of fun with it because they're all training together right now and like getting ready together. It's really cool. It's really, really cool to watch.
When did the guys go on stage? What day?
They go on stage for prejudging tomorrow. I believe it's like 1:00 or so our time. Okay. And then Sunday morning early, like 9 a.m. or something like that.
So they're on stage tomorrow's Friday. So are they on stage Saturday?
Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah, okay.
Prejudging Saturday and finals is Sunday.
Okay. Yes. I had to clarify that because tomorrow I'm going to be at the Ben Leader. So I was like, well,
I think that's why I just thought, because we were just talking about your
athletes. Yeah. So, because if it's Saturday, I have a bunch of clients that have posing sessions, but I'm looking at I'm thinking time frames if I can get on to the live stream. It's probably a promoter from Prague that's doing the live stream, right?
Yeah.
I was wondering if they have like a replay, because some of them will allow you to watch it back and some of them won't.
Let's see. Because I literally just bought it last night. It is from, of course, now I can't find it.
Always when you need it is when you can't find something.
Right? Mm-hmm. Can't find it right now, but.
Well, we'll visit that. If I can get on it, I will.
And also too, I'm realizing, just to be clear, that the times I'm saying what I looked up was in my time frame, so it might even be earlier for you.
It would be 2 hours ahead because you guys don't change for the daylight savings time.
Another benefit of living in Arizona.
I know. Hey, it worked out good for me though, because this 10 a.m. slot is better for me than 11 when we were doing it before. So I'm good with it.
We'll have to revisit when the time changes again, but
I know, right? I know. It's like I always have to because we have our calls for Fit Body. So the first week that we had that after daylight savings, I was like, is this right? I had to check it like 5 times to make sure the time was right. Because
it's an hour later for us now too.
Yeah, because the last time it did change. I remember I got caught off guard. It changed, and I was like, "Oh crap!" I was like, "I'm not on there. I'm supposed to be on there, or whatever it was. I can't remember." And so this time it didn't, and I was like, "Is that right?" I'm like, I literally had to check it like 3 times. Is that right?
Thank God for Google Calendar, because it just moves it for me. But I also question when it's moved. I'm like,
that's what I was saying. Like,
I move that? Is it right? I don't know. I'm just going to show up at that time.
Yeah, because that was the same thing. I was like, I saw it on my calendar, and I was like, is that right? I was like, I don't know if that's
All the
right or not.
meetings, all the
I
meetings, and
know.
all the, well, too, like I was scheduling consults
Yeah.
before the time change
Yeah.
for the week of the, and then I was like,
Same.
oh fuck, because then I have to go back and adjust my calendar because what was 3 hours is now 2 hours for someone else, and yeah, I had it.
Yep.
I think I got it all right except for one. I missed one, but that's okay. I guess I'm human.
we all miss them.
Well,
So
please.
I can. That's actually something that happened this past weekend. It's never happened to me before. So I had a full boat of hair and makeup clients, and one of them just didn't show up. Just didn't show up, and I was like, so I was calling her, and she's like, "Oh, you didn't get the notice of the appointments." She's like, "So I just assumed you didn't put me on the schedule." I was like,
Oh wow.
she ended up. I looked at the results. She just ended up not competing. She wasn't competing, and I was like, in the back of my head, I was thinking, so you just don't show up, like you don't call the promoter, you don't, yeah, you don't call me, like you've texted me before. I've got text messages from her on my phone, so you can get a hold of me. You know what I mean? I was like, I've never had that happen before, and so I looked at the results. I was like, she just ended up not doing the show, which is, by the way, guys, if you end up doing that, please let people know, because I could have changed my schedule. I could have put somebody else in there.
That actually happened to another makeup artist at Hurricane that I know for sure. The athlete just didn't show up and never told anyone. So the promoter was looking for them. This makeup artist was looking for them. And then come to find out they pulled out of the show, which is fine. But just like you're saying, Shawn, like picks up super early. So like that's an hour now that she's just sitting around where she could have got another athlete in there that perhaps was like kind of cutting it close or wanted an earlier time. So it's okay to pull out of the show. Just let people know, because if not, they're calling your name, and the promoters, most of them are going to do everything they can to slow down the show and wait for you if they think that you're late. But if they, if they're holding the show up for no reason, think of how many people are affected by that.
That's right. Absolutely. And that's why I said that was an hour out of my schedule. I was like, I could have put somebody else there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
I'm like, time is money on show weekends too.
Totally.
Like
and it's nothing to be embarrassed about. We're not judging you, and you don't even owe an explanation. It's just a quick email. Hey, I paid. I'm not going to be there. What can we do about the payment? Very simple. Right. Nobody's going to ask why you're not showing up. Just some communication. Yeah,
absolutely, 100%. So anyway, that was just a random. That's literally
that happened to you, and I just heard about that happening literally 3 weeks
literally
ago.
Never happened to me before. Never.
Crazy.
Not once.
Crazy.
And I was just like. And I felt bad because I'm sitting there thinking, I'm like, is this girl lost or something? Like, does she not know where I am? And I was like, and then I got her on the phone. She was like, I just assumed you didn't put me on the schedule. I was like, why would you assume that?
Where most athletes are freaking out Wednesday night. They're like, hey, has anybody heard from him? Artist? No, it's too early. No. You gotta wait.
I was like, and I sent you I send out the hair and makeup schedules by Tuesday of peak week. Right. So everybody's got their schedule by Tuesday. So she had a schedule. She just didn't look at it. I'm just like,
hey, it's one of those things that, hopefully she'll remember for next time.
Yeah.
But honestly, too, like this is the generational gap. Is like I laugh all the time. Like the younger generation can't even like pick up the phone and order a pizza. Like if it doesn't have an app or an online program attached to it, they won't do it. Right. So for whatever reason, like that is something that is really bad about the phone usage and the amount of phones that we use. Is like people just like literally don't understand communication and how to pick up the phone and call someone or tell them that they're not coming. It's just like assumed or not communicated. I see that a lot.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of part of that generational gap with the phones and whatnot.
Well, even, like I said, even just shoot me over a text and just say something,
Of course, I agree.
Like, just let me know.
Let me know.
Yeah, that's all.
Yep.
But whatever. But it was actually a pretty busy show. I was kind of surprised because the show, as the show numbers have been down quite a bit. This past weekend though was pretty full, and I had a lot of girls competing. So.
And in your weekend, and then what other show was last week? Iron Games was huge. They had no breaks. I mean, Jamie, Drew, they said they were in the ballroom from like 8 a.m. till like 9 o'clock at night. There was no breaks.
Wow.
Patrick was really taking his time. And I guess on the pro level, like the girls were on stage in that first call out, Greg said, because he was filming it for about 7.5 minutes, which is a long time. So it's really cool. It's cool to see the numbers are going up.
Yeah.
At the end of the year, which is odd, but it's been the best numbers on both the West Coast and the East Coast all year.
Yeah, it's very interesting to me because, the same thing at this show, because they do the men in the morning and the women at night. So typically The men are done, gone, and then the women have their athlete meeting at 2, and the women start at 3.
Okay.
That's why I say with the hair and makeup, I was doing hair and makeup all the way through till prejudging. So the men were still on stage at 3:00 though.
They were behind.
So I take that back. No, they were still on stage till 2:30 because they did start the women on time, because they talked about how they were going to get the men done and they were going to still start the women on time at 3. They just didn't do the athlete meeting. That's what it was. They just didn't do the athlete meeting, and then they did like a little like 5-minute thing in the hallway, and then they did the prejudging at 3:00. So yeah. It was a pretty decent show. I'm interested to see how Ben Weider goes this weekend. The women are all tomorrow, and then the men are all Saturday. They all have to do
crazy show weekend.
Yeah, they all have to do polygraphs and P tests today. Okay. So they started the test this morning, and they're going all the way through. What they've done that shows in the past with this is they just test the winners basically, but they're testing everybody this year.
Do they have to pay for that? Is that a part of their registration fee?
Yep.
Is the registration fee typically a little more expensive at this show because of those testing? Do you know?
So I think it's 2 separate things, meaning like the entry fee is separate from the testing, but the entry fee is a little bit higher, I believe, because it's a pro qualifier.
Got it.
So the difference this year, what they've done in the past, I don't know if I wasn't there last year because I was competing last year. I was in Hawaii last year. I can't remember if they did this last year or not, but what they've done in the years past, I'm pretty sure they did. So what they've done in the years past is whoever wins the pro cards and the NPC gets to have the option of going into the pro show for IFBB. This year, they're not doing that because the way that prejudging runs, pros are first tomorrow and then NPC.
Oh, that kind of
yeah. So they can't just turn around and go into the pro show.
Yeah,
but they kind of
have that option.
Yeah, they kind of, if they flipped it so the NPC was first and the pros were second, then they could do that. I'm not sure why they didn't. The only thing I can think of is because they have fitness at this show. So the fitness does their routine rounds, physique rounds in the morning, then routine rounds at night. So the only thing I can think of is that they didn't do it that way to give them time in between. So that's all I can think, because the pro numbers themselves, as far as, who's coming into each show, is not big.
Right.
It is for classic. Classic physique is very big, and so is men's physique.
Yeah. Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. For those of you who don't know, Ben Weider is a completely all natural show, which is why it's polygraphed and PT.
Yep. So it's interesting how they did it this year. Last year, they also coupled it with a second show. So what they've done in the last few years is the first day was Ben Weider, and then the second day was the Armed Forces show. So the Ben Weider would be over on Saturday and the Armed Forces would be Sunday. Mm-hmm. So this year, and I'm not sure why they changed it, but they did. So this year they've got, like I said, the women on one day and the men on the next. So I know that it was a lot bigger. I know it was a lot bigger than they ever expected it to be over the last few years as far as the NPC portion of it is concerned, because it is the only pro qualifier that's a natural pro qualifier.
Right.
So,
yeah. And so you have one athlete in the show.
I have one athlete in the pro show. And then I have a bunch of like posing and presence and suit clients and stuff in the NPC. I have a bunch of those.
Yeah.
But yeah, I have Jennifer doing the pro show. She won her pro card at this show 3 years ago.
Okay.
So she won the overall in Masters Bikini. So because she won the overall in Masters Bikini, she got a pro card. She went into it the last 2 years, and she got first call out last year. She ended up 6th. Her conditioning wasn't great last year, and she had some tanning issues and stuff like that last year. We always pick on her because she wore granny panties to bed for whatever reason. She wore granny panties to bed. So when she woke up in the morning, she had panty marks on her tan.
I love her.
She's like, I don't know why I did that. She's like, I never do that. I don't know why.
Because that's what you normally do. I wear granny panties to bed too, and it's comfortable, and you just do what you normally do. And then, yeah, it's weird. It's weird when you usually sleep a certain way, and then you got to sleep another way for tanning. It's
So she went into the tanners the next day and asked them if they could, fix it. And her butt ended up being darker than everything else. So it's like she ended up having mud butt. We always laugh about the mud butt.
That's funny. That's cute. Yeah. So yeah, what did we learn today? Do not wear granny
Do
panties
not
to
wear
bed
granny
when you're
panties to bed when
tanning.
you got tan on.
Yes.
No seams in your clothing, none, zero.
None.
So yeah.
Yes.
So this year her conditioning is phenomenal. Her overall look is just like leaps and bounds from last year. So we're making some fine-tuned tweaks. Once we get done with this podcast, I pack up and I'm going to train here at the house, and then I'm going to pack up and go. It's literally down the street for me. It's like a 45-minute drive or whatever to the
Perfect.
to the venue. I always, whenever it's a local show like that, though, I still always stay at the venue because this is DC.
Yeah, driving
And
is stressful.
so this is a good example. So last week, it's a local show. This particular show is 15 minutes from my house. So I do stay at home at this NBC show for this past weekend. One of the girls lives in Alexandria area, which is about 45 minutes, which again is similar to where this show is this weekend. She stayed at home. Traffic was horrendous, terrible. Like it was a holiday weekend, so the traffic was terrible on Friday.
Yeah,
I was at the
forgot
yeah,
about
yeah. I was at the show venue, checking everybody in, giving them their last meals, all that kind of stuff. Check-ins were from 5 until 7. Because of traffic, it took her 4 hours to get to the venue.
Oh,
4
no.
hours. She got there. They literally had she got there at 7:30 when they were literally shutting the doors and kicking us out of the venue. They literally came to me and they're like, "Shawn, you have to leave. You can't look at her." So she got there. We stood in the parking lot and I told her what to eat. I was like, next time,
Yeah.
I mean, that 45-minute drive just turned into 4 hours.
And then there's stress, freaking out.
Yep.
Yeah. If you're, I always tell my girls, like, even if you're local, I'd prefer if you could stay at the hotel, even just for your stress levels.
That's right. Absolutely. Spend the extra $100. You know what I mean?
And I've seen athletes too try to save $100 and something bucks on one night, and they get there on a Friday, then they can't check into their room till 3:00. They have to be at tanning in an hour. I still haven't seen them. I have no freaking clue what they look like. And it's like, you saved $120. Like, just get there on Thursday, then get there whatever time you want. But then you wake up on Friday morning and you start acting like an athlete. You're ready to go.
Yep. Well, I even did that. I'm on for Battle on the Bay for my last show. I'm going in on Wednesday because I'm traveling from the East Coast all the way to the West Coast. And as I'm looking at these flights, it's like 9-hour, 10-hour flight times, like meaning like between stops, there's no direct flights. So I've got one that's a one connection, but that's a whole day, when you're going from one side of the country to the other. So these Thursday flights were getting me in Thursday evening. And I'm just like, I don't want to do that. Like, I'm changing complete time zones. I'm like, I don't want to be getting in. And if there's a delay or whatever, I don't want to be getting into California at fucking 9:00 at night and then have to be up on Friday and be on it on Friday. I don't want to do that. So
and for you, that's a time change, like a major time change too. Yeah.
Big time. And like, for me, I'm hoping it's going to be better because I'm a late person. So I stay up late anyway. So I think that's going to actually be beneficial for me going out to California.
Yes.
But
then you're technically going to bed early because you're going to be tired early on our time. Yeah.
That's right. Yep. So I'm thinking it's going to play well for me. But like I said, I was like, I'm going to spend the extra $100 and go out on Wednesday, get an extra hotel room. It actually kind of evens out because the flights were cheaper going on Wednesday than on Thursday. So it actually kind of evens out when it comes down to it. So
there you go.
You got to think about those things. You've put months and months and months and months of hard work into this stuff. Why are you going to try to be cheap with something like that? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's just the one thing you don't want to go cheap on. You know what I mean? Like, if you really have to do your own hair and makeup to be able to afford something that's going to make your stress lower, like getting there a day earlier, whatever it is, then do that. Same thing goes for hair and makeup. Maybe you do need to come in a day later because the hair and makeup is what stresses you out the most. You just really, if you have to pick and choose, you really you're keeping your stress low is number one. Like, so whatever you need to do in order to do that, that's what needs to be executed.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And it seems like something that's self-explanatory, but it's just not. Like, there's just little things that you can't account for. Like, nobody would have thought that a 45-minute drive would turn into 4 hours. Nobody would have thought that, but it did. I mean, this is DC, and we know the traffic here is ridiculous all the time. So it's like, you got to be planning for that,
Yeah. And that's just something outside of your control.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
You can wake up and the whole freeway is not operational. And then what do you do?
Yeah, you have a hurricane coming through, so your flights get delayed 15 times.
We've seen this not once but twice this year, back-to-back weekends.
Yeah, just it's just
Love
crazy.
you, Florida.
I
know. Miss you.
I know, right? I'm like, well, thankfully I'm going to California, so there shouldn't be anything unless there's an earthquake. That's all they got out there.
Beautiful weather. Come on over. It's like 72 degrees this morning. It's beautiful.
Well, I think that San Francisco is relatively north California, so I think it's about maybe even a little colder than what we have here in DC. So I always pay attention to that kind of thing too, but not by much. We're finally getting like fall weather. We didn't for a long time. Like it was like 80s last week, you know. Yeah. Now it's feeling like, you know, we're getting that 40s, 50s, that kind of thing. I'm sitting outside. I'm like, oh, this is outside with my dogs. I'm like, oh, this is not fun.
I love that weather. That's my favorite.
Oh no, I'm the in between. I like fall and I like spring. Summer's my favorite.
Yeah.
But like that 70s to 80s is my sweet spot. It really is.
Perfect.
Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah. So, but you know, I say it all the time. I'm like, why do I prep in the winter every time? Like, why do I do this to myself? I'm always in prep in like November, December timeframe. I'm like, why do I do this to myself? I'm freezing all the time.
That's true. Yeah, with low body fat. Yeah, that doesn't help you at all.
No. I was like, I don't know. It's just, but you know, when you think about our seasons and stuff, the best times for us to compete are at the beginning of the year, the end of the year.
Of course. Absolutely. Yeah. Cold plunging in this weather is a whole new level of torture. So I'm like wearing a beanie now and like, just please no wind. Please no wind on my face. I'm going to get a ski mask and sit in the cold plunge and really freak people out.
You and Dan can do that together. He always tries to get me to do that. I'm like, nope. Because he does the cold showers every morning.
Yeah, well, you know what? You are now doing body work and the needles now. So you said you wouldn't do that. Now you are. Just wait. You're gonna you'll be a cold plunger here soon.
I know. Well, he said to me, he was like, well, if somebody would give you $1 million to do a cold plunge, would you do it? I said, fuck yes, I would. I was like, for $1 million, yeah, I would do a cold plunge. There's not a lot of things
I wouldn't do for $1 million.
I was like, yeah. He's like, well, you said you would never do it. I said, I don't want to willingly do it, but shit, if somebody's going to give me $1 million,
I'm going to go. $100. Are you
I know. Seriously, I would too. I would do it for $100. Not even a lie.
I do it for free right now, so I'll take any.
Yeah, right. I'm like, I'll do it. Yeah. Whatever. Like you're like, I'll do it for a Starbucks gift card.
I'll totally do it for anything. All right, the next time you come out, I'm going to at least make you put a toe in. At least a toe in that water.
See, and I'm trying to think. I've done, like, they try to get me to do cryo, oh, what is it? Say it.
Cryo.
Thank you. I was like, cryotherapy is not right.
Cryo or cryo.
Yeah, cryo. There we go. They tried to get me to do that, and I wouldn't do it. I was like, no, I hate, because I'm that person. I'm like, when I get cold, I can't get warm. It's just like, I just can't.
You know, it's funny. I did cryo one time, and I would prefer the cold plunge actually because I feel like I can ball up and almost like get some more body warmth that way. Versus in the cryo, you're just kind of standing and like hoping it's over soon. I don't know. I definitely like the water better.
Huh.
Interestingly enough, yeah. I think that's probably a personal thing, but what I'm thinking about it.
My personal thing is I just don't want to be cold. There we go.
You and a lot of people.
Yes, right. So we forgot one part of our topic today, which is if you could see anybody like switch over to a division, who would it be and why? I'd just like to take a moment to welcome our new channel partners, Prozis. If you are unfamiliar with them, go ahead and go down into my description box now, click on the link, go check out their site. They are the leading supplement sports nutrition company based out of Portugal, been around for 17 years. You might be asking what makes Prozis unique? Well, everything that they make is made in-house or with trusted partners. They have to go through rigorous testing in Portugal in order to even get any products on the market. So what you're gonna find really high quality, pure supplementation. And one of the biggest things for me is I have some GI issues. So being able to eat some of these more healthy protein treats and things like that and not have any gut issues, worth its weight in gold. Go check them out. Click on the link in my description box below. Use the code CUTIES10 to get all of your discounts and even some special surprises. They're always putting out some amazing promotions. Let them know that I sent you and let me know what you think. Thanks again for watching and thank you for supporting our channel. Now, go optimize your own athletic abilities and check out Prozis.com. I got two.
You go. I'm gonna think.
Okay. Well, I know that that Sid Gillen just retired, right? But I would love to see like her or Jessica Padilla or any one of those top 5 girls in figure switch over to women's physique. I want to see what they look like next to each other in poses, right? I want
I
to
feel like they could hang.
Yeah, I do. I think so too.
Yeah.
I would be very curious to see the difference. Like if there's a significant difference in muscle size and conditioning, or if it's just, maybe the figure girls just need to bring body fat down by another % or something. Like I'm curious to see what that would look like next to each other. And I would love to see, and I know that she's not this division, I know this, but I would love to see Laura Lee do wellness.
That would be interesting.
Yeah, I would just like to see like, because she's that one that has to taper back her training and like keep herself restricted and things like that. So if she just went balls to the wall, I wonder what she would look like on wellness.
That's a good one. And obviously these are hypotheticals, but
right.
Really good. I would say Keon eventually going to Open. Yeah. I think that will happen eventually, but he's really successful right now. 212, obviously. So Keon eventually going to Open. And then for women, I know this is kind of a random one, but it is on topic of Valeria. I know that she's kind of really struggling in bikini. I think she would do really well in like women's physique or figure if she added some more tissue. She loves to be super lean, and that's kind of what's happening right now and why she's not being as successful in bikini. Yep. So her preferred look would be like that conditioning would be great in one of the bigger categories. Agreed. So I think she should jump, and I think she should do it.
I'm curious, like I think because people always say she should go to figure, right? That's what they should say. They say because of her conditioning, but I don't know if her structure fits figure.
Right. That's why I'm thinking like WP.
Yeah, the women's physique is an interesting one.
Yeah. Yeah. Because honestly, I feel like WP now isn't more of a size game. Don't get me wrong. They have to be big, but I don't think it's as much driven on the size as it is on the conditioning now. Agreed. And like the shape and the prettiness of the physique. So yeah, it's interesting. Yeah.
I think just with her stage presence and stuff like that too, I think she would probably thrive in a women's physique division kind of thing,
Yeah.
That's interesting. I never even thought about that. Because people say all the time about her, like she should go to a different division, and I'm just like, I don't see her in figure. I just don't see it because she's got the bigger glutes and things like that. So I just don't see that being transferable over to figure. But I could see her posing it correctly in women's physique. I like that.
And honestly, like we all know, she's in bikini. Like she is bikini. It's just, that mental of what we like to see ourselves as versus what the judges are picking. And that's something that, I think she's struggling with. And obviously I haven't had any conversation with her about this. This is all just my opinion. But, if you want to keep that level of conditioning, well, then take it balls to the wall and go WP, and that way you're awarded for it,
Yeah. That's what I say. Like I'd like to see what happens to Laura Lee if she just lets go of the reins and just goes at it. I'd like to see where she could take her physique, because I do think she has to restrict herself quite a bit. I think she has to restrain herself in her training and all that kind of stuff. And I'd like to see what she could do as far as exploding her physique a little bit. Yeah. And I don't necessarily think she has the genetics to be able to get as big as she would need to for wellness, but I'd still like to see her try.
Yeah. I mean, for someone that like Laura Lee that loves to train and loves to train heavy, like I think her body, like you're saying, she's pulling back on so much right now, probably how she wants to train, as do a lot of bikini competitors that really love to train hard. So that's where it's like interesting. It's almost like when we're all retired, we should all just like train how we want to at the intensity that we want to, and kind of see genetically with our level of training what kind of shape we create. Would we even be in a category at that point, and that's the hard thing, is like so much of bodybuilding is that you're training to meet the standards of your criteria to keep in this box, you know what I mean? So like we might train, go balls to the wall, and you're not thinking about staying in a box, and you outgrow any of the divisions that are available based on your genetics. So that's the fun part, though. That would be super, super fun.
I think just talking about this too, I mean, I'll probably do that myself. Just kind of do figure one more time before I quit, just to see.
Yeah. Just to see. Honestly, this is what CBum's doing. He's like, I'm going to finish it where I started. He got his pro card in Open, and now he's going to finish his retirement in Open, just to see. He's got no expectation.
It would just be fun. It would just be fun to do it, Absolutely. Just to see.
Yeah.
Because I still think at the end of the day, my structure is better for figure than it is for bikini. I really do. I just don't have the size. Now, my conditioning has gotten a lot better. So I feel like I could probably push the conditioning a little bit.
Yeah.
But I just don't, being as lanky as I am, it's really hard to get that kind of size, So, but I still think my structure fits figure better than bikini. I really do.
Figure and fitness, totally, for sure.
Yeah, maybe I'll do some gymnastics classes, some tumbling. I'll go up there and do some somersaults.
You're like masters too. I'm coming out at 55 years old and I'm fitness.
Hell yeah. I would totally, it's so funny. I would totally do that. Just make sure I can get the required, the actual required moves.
Yep.
And I can do pole dancing. So, Oksana did that. I can flip upside down and stuff on a stripper pole. I can do that.
Hey, that's off to a great start, because that's not easy. So at least you have some sort, you have some sort of strength with flipping around and down.
Yeah, I have a lot. It's funny because I have a lot more upper body strength than I realize. Because we don't train for strength, we train for looks, right?
We talked about this on our last podcast.
Yeah. So when I did that little mini vacay with my husband down in Virginia Beach, and I was they have the whole jungle gym thing out on the beach, and I was doing the hanging bars, everything. I shocked myself at how much I was able to do, because I don't ever go for strength ever. Right. So I was like, I don't think I can do this. And then it was easy. I was like, where did this come from?
Funny, I had a client message me yesterday, and it was her doing pull-ups, and she said she got 5 and her goal is 8. She's like, I did a pull-up and I was able to do 5, and now I want my goal to be 8. Can I keep pull-ups in my program? I'm like, sure, no problem. But it's cool. When you do something that you're not expecting and you surprise yourself, especially 100%. On something like that.
I was not expecting that. I was like, okay, now my wheels in my head are turning, and I'm like, oh, maybe I should do fitness.
Shawn's going to come out with a major announcement, Bikini first, January 1st, to be like, all right, switching to fitness.
Maybe I can qualify in fitness. Hey, I could do the physique round because, a lot of the girls in fitness are natural, because they focus more on the actual routines in fitness than they do the physique. So that's why you see softer girls, they just have good structures, things like that. My 2 girls I've got 2 fitness girls that I work with, their posing in their suits, are doing Ben Weider. And Tatiana's making her pro debut. Andrea's been to the Olympia. So they both have just great structures, and then they have phenomenal routines. Tatiana has amazing routines. Andrea missed qualifying for the Olympia. She got second place 3 times this year, I think. She qualified 2 years ago. So she's coming back into this show. And then Tatiana won the overall at Universe this year. It was her second show ever.
Wow.
She did the Ben Weider last year, and she was the only competitor in it. So they didn't give her a pro card because she was the only fitness competitor. So she did Universe. She cracks me up. She's so sweet. She came to me, I don't know, maybe a month out from Universe, because she hadn't really practiced posing ever, because this is her second show. But her posing was phenomenal. She has an amazing shape. So she's this cute little spitfire on stage. She looks phenomenal. So I can't wait to see both of them perform this weekend. I really can't. And I think
full circle.
Yeah, I think 1 or 2 of them could win it. So maybe we'll get 2 Olympic qualifications tomorrow. Maybe.
That'd be amazing.
Obviously,
that's super hard.
I know, right?
I have major FOMO. Everybody's at all the shows this weekend. I'm home on dog duty, which is fine, but I'm gonna be watching all the live streams. So
isn't it so hard? It's sometimes I'm so happy to be home sometimes, but then I'm I wish I was there.
Of course, of course I want to be home, and of course, my animals deserve all my love and attention right now, which is why Drew and I just switched up all of our travels so I could be home for the next couple of months. But you want to be there. This is what we do. We love what we do. And yes, we get exhausted traveling every weekend, but we absolutely love being together, being with our athletes. So it's always bittersweet. It's very, very bittersweet, but it's hard. We also have to take care of ourselves.
Yeah. It's hard to dial people in when you're not there in person. You know what I mean?
Totally.
So
yeah, we can do it, but it makes it a lot easier when you could see it yourself.
Yeah. And that's I had 3 of my girls that I dialed in this past weekend, and 2 of them have competed before. 1 of them with me, one not. And it was just really cool to be able to see them in person and have hands on them to do things. And all 3 of them did well, but the 2 that had competed before both made significant improvements since their last shows. and they both are doing one more show this year, and I'm not going to be at either one of those shows. So I'm just like, I'm like, well, I'm going to do my best. I'm like, but like they're both in the mindset of they had a really, really good package this past weekend. So now they just want to fix a few things, like some posing things for both of them. They want to fix a few posing errors that they made. And, we want to try and get them a little fuller and things like that, just to kind of knock out their year. And then they can both go into an improvement season. But it was just really cool to be able to see that in person.
Yeah.
And it's always fun. I don't know like about you, but it's always fun to go from, the backstage of getting them ready to go on stage and then see the result actually show up on the stage. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'd be like, oh, I did that. Oh, I made that look that good. Oh, that's so awesome. Like, I was like, that's just so cool to see that. Like, I don't know. It's, I don't know if validation is the right word, but it's just really cool to be able to see that result come to fruition right in front of your face,
Yeah, well, you always have an idea in your mind or a picture in your mind of what you want that athlete to look like when their heel hits the stage under the lights. And, they look a certain way in the room and they, you're like, you're happy with it, but really they look so much better when they're like up there. So it's cool. I think validating is the right word, especially as a coach. And honestly, too, sometimes the athlete steps on stage and you're like, oh, fuck, I could have done a little bit more, and that's okay too. You got to own that when that athlete comes off stage. And I've said many times if I've, felt like I've done something wrong or, needed to change something, and that's how you learn though. So most of the time we get it right, but sometimes you don't. But that's a learning experience. And as long as you're communicating that with the athlete on what they could have done better, what I could have done better to peak you, and then we do another show and we meet that goal, then obviously we just continue to kind of see those improvements. And then when you find, I think that's even better. Like when you see like a peak that didn't go right the first time, and then you kind of nail it that second time they come on stage and you're like, yes. It's like it's even cooler as a coach because it's the science behind it and the manipulations you had to do to kind of pull it out of that athlete. Like obviously like a smooth peak week is super easy and chill and like obviously goes to their hard work, but it's easy, right? So like when you get one of those where it's a little bit harder and a little bit more complicated and it makes you actually like learn and put your thinking brain on for that athlete, it's fun for us as coaches. We want to do that.
Absolutely. And on that note too, like it's a little uncomfortable. Like for me as an athlete, this last show is uncomfortable, because it's different from what I've ever done before. And I look different than what I've ever looked before. So like I was going to say, I got my update from Jamie today, and now my calories are at 2265. My carbs are at 260. My fat's at 65. Like this is high. Like this is what I was on when I was off season.
Right.
So it's like, it's hard. Like I'm sure she's like the messages that I get from her as far as like the check-ins have tons of exclamation points. Like she's super excited about the way I'm looking and stuff, which helps me because as an athlete, I'm like, this is uncomfortable. I'm like, am I doing the right thing? Because I've never been on 10 minutes of cardio a day ever.
With this amount of food.
Yeah. 2 years ago, she had me on 90 minutes of cardio a day. And I'm like, is it, and part of me is like, am I seeing, cause I can see myself, but I'm like, am I seeing what is actually being presented, or do I have the prep goggles? I don't know. Like I see my videos. I'm like, I look so much fuller, but is that good? You know what I mean? Like it's really hard. So it's
that's why we have coaches.
That's right. It's very interesting. Like I said, it's uncomfortable, but at the same time, being a coach now, I see it from both vantage points too, because I'm like, okay, because I'm doing the same thing to my athletes. And I'm like, okay, I want you fuller, I want you rounder, eat more. And sometimes they push back on me. Like I had my one girl, she's like, more? She wants me to eat more? Like I had around 300 something grams of carbs, like 80 grams of fat. And I'm like, eat more, and she's like, really? I was like, yeah. And that's why she wants to do another show. She just competed this weekend. That's why she wants to do another show, because she just feels so good. And she's like, and her thing was, even with all of the food that I gave her, she was still a little bit too hard. So I was like, we got to keep pushing more
room
food.
To feed. Yeah.
We still got to keep pushing more food. I was like, and
that's awesome.
and that's what she said. She's like, I want to do another show because I just don't feel like I'm even in prep. I was like, all right, well, let's go. Let's do it.
That's awesome. Great spot to be in.
100%.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, fun. But anyway, so I'm excited. And like I said, after this weekend, this Ben Weeder weekend is a big one for me. And then as far as clients are concerned, and then I've got 2 weeks to just kind of cruise in and just focus on the show. And then we got CCTS coming up too. So It's coming up
Very
so
excited
fast.
about that. I was shopping for dresses last night.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
So we started. For those of you that are listening to this and going to CCTS, if you're not in the WhatsApp group, please let me know, because I have a WhatsApp group going now. We were doing Facebook. We've always done Facebook. It is still there if you want it, but a lot of people don't use Facebook, and Dan has been banned from Facebook, so he can't communicate in there. So on WhatsApp he can, and he can see all the questions going back and forth and things like that too. So get into our WhatsApp group, because the girls are doing a lot of communication back and forth. They're talking about dresses they're going to buy and all this kind of stuff, looks and everything like that. So we got the theme going in there and everything. So we're starting to put all the little punctuation marks on all the prep and planning for that too. So it's going to be fun.
Very excited. Very, very excited.
So with that, we can wrap it up for today. I do have to get all my stuff packed up and go train and get over to the host hotel and check all my athletes in. So
have a fun weekend. Good luck. We'll be all cheering for you. And obviously we'll be watching the live stream. So
put some prayers up for our Fit Body Fusion girls. We got a handful of them in the show. And and we'll be doing the same thing for Atlantic Coast too, once the girls are over with here. So
and Hawaii.
And Hawaii too. Yep. Yeah. And Prague. Do we have anybody in Prague? We don't have any Fit Body people.
Nobody in Prague from Fit Body, but a lot between all three shows this weekend. So
yeah.
Yay!
All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for joining us as always. And as always, like, comment, subscribe, share with all of your friends. If you have suggestions, anything that you want us to cover, please feel free to drop them in the comment box below. And this is episode 64 for Behind the Bikini. We are out.
Bye.